Okay, so we're going to move to the first panel discussion, which is, do women in business need to adopt specific behaviors to succeed? Now, the findings of the barometer study were eye-opening for me, as I said earlier, for somebody that's not in the business field and in entertainment industry instead. So I'm sure that a lot of you are going to have a lot of opinions, and we'll hopefully have a lot of questions for our panelists once this first panel is over. So to introduce our first panelist, I will go straight ahead. Our first panelist is Andrew Ali, CEO and partner of Southbridge. Please come up. I would like you to please put your hands together for every single person that I invite up here, because it's not an easy thing to sit up here. Honestly, I know a lot of people don't think so, and they don't think it's a big deal, but it is a big deal. So please give them a warm welcome when they're coming up on stage. We want them to feel welcome, okay? Our next panelist is Mo Abudu, CEO of Ebony Life Group. Our third panelist for the first panel discussion is Temi Marcella Awogboro, Executive Director of Evercare Hospital. All right, so just as we begin, I'm going to share some of the stats from the barometer study. I won't bore you, because as I said, you're going to have access to a lot of these stats, but just a few things that I had noticed. Now, half of women and men agree that female entrepreneurs must act more like men in order to succeed, right? Now, those surveyed believe that the behaviors that drive success are different from men and women, with determination, creativity, resourcefulness, and risk-taking being some of the main behaviors. But I'm sure each of you have personal experiences that may or may not actually tally with this. So I'm so interested in hearing what each of you has to say about your personal experiences. I'm wondering if I should ask Andrew Ali the first question, just to get a male perspective of someone who is very much in support of women, by the way, I might add. So, Mr. Ali, do you believe that women need to adopt certain behaviors in order to succeed in Nigeria, female entrepreneurs?
Thank you. I think they do. And the fact I say I think they do does not mean I think they should. And I think those are two different things. But I mean, we live in a culture where, and you know, my wife actually is an entrepreneur. She's in agriculture, does some training and stuff like that. And certainly when I observe her as a business lady versus when I observe her in the house, she does have a different personality, and she has to be more assertive, more aggressive, unfortunately, particularly when dealing with men, but actually, unfortunately, also when dealing with other women, because you just have to kind of assert yourself in this country. And if you're not, if you're kind of quiet and a shrinking violet, then, you know, you probably get overlooked, and more so if you're a woman. And, you know, it's sad to say this, but I think this is the fact of life. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to try and change this. And it's extremely important, because women make up half of the population of this country. This is a poor country. And therefore, you know, if women are not fulfilling their full potential, whatever that may be, and that full potential can, you know, be very well staying at home and looking after the kids in the quote-unquote traditional role. It can be being a chief exec of a company, whatever it is. But if they are not able to fulfill their full potential because of, you know, some societal issues, that's detrimental to our whole country, because it means that 50% of our population is not contributing to the economy, is not contributing to the development of society in the maximal way that it could. And so, I mean, there's a kind of moral thing that, all human beings have whether you're male, whether you're female, whether you're whatever, have a right to be able to fulfill their potential. But even if we're looking at it just purely from a self-interest point of view, that we want this country to be as well developed, as prosperous as possible, we need to do this. And I mean, some of the things there sadly resonate. I mean, for example, again, in this country, typically responsibilities of childcare and things fall on women,
which we will come to in some of the
exactly.
other,
Which
we'll come to in some of the other panel discussions. So I don't want to veer off.
No, I'm not going to say that. But what I'm going to say is that and what I've observed is that, for example, women feel they sort of have the childcare, but then they feel constrained from saying, look, okay, I'm a mother, maybe I can't stay so late because I have a child, at home that I need to go and look after. And so, they can't be themselves. They can't, whereas most of the time these are things that can be worked around.
Thank you.
So I'll end it there, but I think it's very important. But I do see this in our society.
In your society, okay, thank you. And May, what's your opinion on that? Do you believe that women have to adopt certain behaviors to succeed, and what has been your personal experience?
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ebony Life Place. And we thank everyone for being here, and particularly Sam for making sure that it happened at this event. I mean, at this venue, this event at this venue. Now, I think that, first of all, I say this often, that women suffer 3 levels of discrimination as a Nigerian woman. First, you are a woman. Mm-hmm. Second, you are a Black woman. Mm-hmm. Third, you are an African woman. Mm-hmm. So you carry 3 burdens. We all know all over the world that women are already discriminated against. But we now have 2 extra layers that we have to deal with as women living and working in this environment. Now, you said personally what has been my experience. Many years ago, I was 35 when I did my first hotel project, the Protea Hotel. And I remember speaking to a well-known, respected businessman in this society. And I said to him, I needed to raise $10 million. And his response to me was, no, why are you doing this now? You have children, just look after your kids. Why do you have to go and worry about trying to do all of this? So it's okay for women in this environment to set up businesses that is literally a mom and pop business. Like your husband will say, okay, I'll open a shop for you. You can sell fish. You can sell shoes. You can sell jewelry from the house. It's like I am allowing you to do these things. I have been described as over-ambitious. You're dealing with all kinds of issues. And a lot of the time, it's coming from wives telling their husbands, I mean, why is she doing all of this? Why can't she just But the thing is that we all have a right to be as ambitious as we want, to dream as big as you want, to do as much as you want. And not you, us, me included. I keep having to every morning I say, Mo, you have to do this. To say to anybody that cares to listen, that my dream as a woman are as valid as your dreams as a man. And that whatever the challenges are, whatever the barometers are, I am going to find a way to make them happen. Now, I've been living in this country since 1992. So that's, I don't know how many years that is, probably nearly 30 years. I came back to this country when my daughter was 3 years old. And you've had to deal with one issue after the other. But we can't not say because there's a challenge or because there's an issue that you aren't going to deal with it.
You're essentially saying yes, I have adopted certain behaviors. to
I'm
succeed.
saying
And if
that
they viewed
I am
me
saying that
as-
I am refusing to take no for an answer.
So you will do.
And I'm saying that
Yes.
whatever it is that I need to do, of course, I'm not going to go
Within
and
reason.
murder anyone,
Yes, obviously.
or do certain things that I shouldn't be doing.
But if you need to be audacious,
But
if
if
you
I need
be
to be
bold, if you
audacious
need to
and
be viewed as
tenacious,
bossy,
and
then you don't.
I'm going
you will
to,
do
but
what you
I'm
need
going to
do.
also be prepared, because as women, we have to work 3, 4, 5 times as hard. You're going to make a presentation to a bank MD about something. Don't just go there thinking because you're beautiful. Yes, it counts to be beautiful, by the way. It counts to, to look good. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. And I tick that box all the time. It's very important for me to do my makeup and put on my lashes and put on my high heels and go. But I will also make sure that I have a presentation that is kick-ass, that you're going to say, wow, did I really do that? So we must have the ability to tick all the boxes. And then it's going to be very difficult for them to say no to you. So does that kind of
You
get
did.
us
You did
started?
answer. You did answer. You expatiated a lot more, but I think the audience is clear on your opinion. I'm just going to share some more of the findings from the barometer study. 71% of women entrepreneurs feel they must show more authority, be more confident, determined, and creative than their male counterparts in order to succeed professionally. 53% of men agree. Now, acting in a way that is professionally bold and assertive has a price. However, most female entrepreneurs, 60% in comparison to 46% of their male counterparts, say that women entrepreneurs are perceived as too bossy. 82% of women entrepreneurs and 86% of women wantpreneurs, so those who haven't become entrepreneurs yet, think women entrepreneurs face more criticism from their employees and peers than male entrepreneurs. There are a lot of different stats. Now, what was very interesting for me with a lot of these stats is there was, a lot of hypocrisy. The majority of you also believe that women need to act in a particular way to succeed and that they must do so in this environment. But then when they do so, you label them as too bossy. So I am sure that there are a lot of women, maybe not both of you sitting here, but there are a lot of women who have experienced that, trying to balance that act. Am I going to be as over-assertive? I know I've had that experience in my industry. So Temi, I'd like to find out what your experience has been like, currently is, if you'd like to share that with us. Please make your response as concise as possible. And also if you feel that it is dependent on the industry specifically that one works in. Because there are a lot of women who are in the beauty, creative industries, whereas with men, from the survey taken in the barometer study, it was predominantly men in technology, business, and finance.
So it's called the backlash effect, right? So women who are assertive and confident tend to do better, but the minute you're perceived as aggressive, then you're penalized for exhibiting traits that are not feminine, right? And I've seen it in practice. I mean, I could respond to the same thing in the same way as my male counterpart would, and I will be seen as the bee or overly aggressive or with a bee in my bonnet. And with the guy, it's completely like, oh, it's par for course. Oh, he's assertive, he's strong, he's a leader. And so that's something that absolutely you have to deal with. I mean, anecdotally, I've always found myself in extremely male-dominated industries.
And how have you handled?
So I started my career at Goldman Sachs in London on the trading floor. I was one of 2 female traders on the trading floor. And I mean, I was like a deer in headlights, right? The concept of gender was not something that I'd been brought up with because my parents sort of raised us irrespectively of gender. And I remember, there was a trade went bad and the guy basically said, get off the trading floor. You don't belong here. Just go and get the coffee for the rest of the desk. And I was like, what? And so the other female trader on the floor came to me and she yanked me off and she basically gave me a pep talk in the bathroom. And she was like, every time you put on your makeup, it's camouflage. And remember you're at war. And never let them see you cry, and never let them see you show emotion. So for the first 10 years of my career, I was like at war. Every time you go to work, it's like I put my camouflage on, I'm ready, right? And even then moving to Nigeria, the point, I make that point because it's a universal issue. It's not a Nigeria-specific issue. But even moving to Nigeria, I remember I went to my first board meeting of a publicly listed company, and the chairman said, "Where's your twin sister so we can share?" And I was like, "What?"
Okay.
And then we were taking pictures for the annual
Did everybody hear what she just said?
Yes.
Okay.
And we were taking
just to be
pictures
clear.
for the annual report, and it was like, who's she gonna stand next to? And she should sit on my lap. And I'm coming here with Cambridge undergrad and Stanford MBA and Goldman Sachs, and all of that went out the window because they looked at you and they were like, oh, okay.
She's just a pretty face.
She's just a pretty face. And so for me, you know, early in your career, the coping mechanisms are, I stopped wearing makeup, I stopped wearing dresses, I always wore black. I would come into the meeting and you would look at me and say, okay, she's here for work, right? But you shouldn't
So you're trying to somehow strip
you strip
the
all the femininity out of you.
you.
But you shouldn't have to do that. And it was only sort of later on in my career that I realized it's not my issue, it's your issue, right? And so for me, you know, and men, present company
Excluded.
they suffer from a scarcity mindset. And corporates and even entrepreneurship is all about zero-sum game, I win, you lose. And you realize that the strength of women coming from a mindset of abundance. And that's something that I try to hone in on. It's not about I win, you lose. It's about how do we both win. Do you see what I mean? And so when you sort of start to embrace that, but also embrace your femininity, embrace the fact that you bring a completely different perspective to the room. And for me, you know, I'm no longer at war, I've won. So the fact that I'm in this room, I'm at the table, I've won. So let's engage. It takes you out of that defensive mindset where you're internalizing and it's me and I need to do this and I need to be different. So actually, I've won, I'm here.
So for you, in a nutshell, it's been to
my-
accept who you are,
100%.
accept the feminine side of you,
100%.
and when it's called for, exert
100%.
more
Yes.
authority, but
And
not
that-
necessarily adopt masculine behavior.
No, and the way the world is going, it's about collaboration, it's about inspiration, it's about role modeling, it's about inclusive decision making, and these are things that don't exist in the sort of prior scarcity, male-dominated, cutthroat, dog-eat-dog world.
Yeah.
And so actually, women own the future. And so for me, it's about leaning into your femininity, leaning into the unique perspectives you bring to the table, and embracing that and owning it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. I think for a lot of younger women who are not, you know, entrepreneurs yet, people that are in their early 20s, they have an idealistic view in some ways of what being an entrepreneur would be like. So going through the barometer study, a lot of them were conscious of the fact that, yes, they would have to behave in certain ways, and also the young men that took part in the study. What would you say, because there are some, you know, young women here, I know that you're already an entrepreneur and you have been for quite a few years. What would you say, what advice would you give them, MA? And I would like this question to be answered by everybody, because I think everybody's perspective would be useful and it would be hopefully different. What advice would you give them that wouldn't necessarily deter them, but that would make it clear to them so that they're not sort of coming into it with rose-tinted glasses? Because I think it's inevitable that there would be some rose-tinted glasses. Ms. Khalifa, would you answer that? Okay, MA.
I think it starts with making sure that you have a clear idea of what it is that you want to achieve. Because a lot of the time, you know, you sort of think, I think I know what I want to do. But you have to really focus in on what that idea is. You have to document it, you have to vision it, you have to see it. You've then got to build the right team that's going to help you realize it. You've got to go through and tick all the different boxes that any other person, man or woman, is going to have to tick to say that I want to run or build this particular business. How are you going to fund it? When are you going to break even? How are you going to market it? How do you go to market? What is the product? What does the product look like? You're going to have to go through all of that. And whilst you're going through all of that, you are going to come across, I say you meet two types of people in this world. They're your dream makers and your dream killers. And you need both of them side by side. The dream makers are going to encourage you and say, yes, you can do it, you can make it happen, and they're going to help you make it happen. And the dream killers are going to say, no, I don't think that's... I remember when I said I wanted to start a TV channel, and some people were like, start a TV channel? How are you going to do that? I mean, even I didn't know how I was going to do it, to be honest. But I was like, okay, what are the steps? What do I need? I need a schedule, I need programming, I need equipment, I need a studio. So you've got to have a long list. I mean, I'm very good at, I still do the notepad thing. I know all of you are probably very techie and everything is sort of like iPads and things, but I still have a notepad. And I like to say number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and I like to tick them off as I've done them, So I've got tons of these notepads at home. So it's important that you identify very clearly what you want to achieve and what are the steps to achieving those things. And then you work through those steps every single blessed day. And you're going to come across all kinds of challenges along the way, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you're going to say, okay, do I give up? Do I keep going? And a lot of the time, the reason why we don't achieve those things is because we've given up. It took me 4 years to launch a TV channel. It took me 3 years to get this place off the ground. We built it in 18 months. But even finding the location itself was in itself a nightmare. Then going to Lagos State and getting planning approval, and then doing the architectural drawings and getting those approved, and getting the contractors on site. And then you're dealing with, different architects and, the architects and then the different contractors and everybody moving in, and then furniture, and then the design. And then now that we're up and running, the staff and the cinemas are running, and this and that and the other. It's a lot. And that is just this part of the business. It's not talking about, we want to make a movie and who is the cast and doing this and doing the other. So I'm just saying, So I'm just saying that, please, vision, 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 plan, plan, plan. Don't give up. You're going to have the challenges. You're going to have to deal with them, and keep ticking off as you're doing. And the list is going to keep getting longer and longer, and you're going to have to keep working through them. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Thank you. Temi, what would you say to entrepreneurs that are listening? Please make your answers as concise as possible. We're trying to keep all the panel discussions to 20 minutes, please.
I'll try. So for me, the election of Kamala Harris as VP of the United States was extremely pivotal for women globally. And she said in her speech something that resonated with me. So it's dream with ambition, lead with conviction, and see yourself in ways that others don't, because they may have never seen it before. And anyone that's sort of seen sort of the content that I put out, I focus on the 3 Ps. So it's passion, purpose, and performance. And for me, you need the 3, right? So dream with ambition is the passion. You need to have passion for whatever it is you're doing. You decide to do. Secondly, it's the purpose, so the why. And for me, the why is everything, because it's the why that keeps me going in the face of naysayers, in the face of everyone that says,
driven towards your passion.
You can't do it. I'm like, this is the why, and I'm going to do it. And then performance, there's no shortcut for getting there, as Mo rightly said. It takes grit, it takes persistence. I am that kind of person that is like, you say no, and I'm going to prove you, and my track record and my results and my performance is going to speak for itself. So by the time I'm at the table with you, there's no questions asked.
Thank you.
For me, passion, purpose, and performance.
Thank you very much. Andrew Lee?
Yeah, so I would say that, really it starts with yourself. You need to make sure that you have the confidence, that you have the grit, you have the sort of internal fortitude to do this. And to some extent, this is the same whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're an employee, whether you're trying to be an entrepreneur, the degrees of each of these things may differ, but, the basics are still the same. I think the other thing is to really build a support network of people who are your peers, people who are your egbons, as Yorubas would say, and people that you can really rely on, both of your gender and also others who are supportive. And then I think the other thing is...
So essentially find mentors, both male and female.
Yeah, well, I was going to come on to that. I was actually talking more about peers.
Okay.
So, mentors that was the next thing I was going to say, but you need to have somebody that you can call up and say, oh, that bloody idiot at work has done it again. That's not going to be your mentor, right?
Yeah.
But you need to be able to vent.
It depends on the mentor, but
the mentor is more the I have this vision, I have this plan.
depends on
What
the
do you
mentor
think?
and the relationship.
But that's the other thing. You need to look for allies. You need to look for mentors. I mean, early on in my career, for example, I left business school. I went to the IFC. I did very well. It wasn't due to me. It was due to some of the early mentors I had. Some of whom were women. Actually, my first boss there was a woman, and they really pushed me forward. They could see what I was capable of. Maybe that I wasn't even capable of. So, you look for those kind of people as well and really build up a strong support network. But it really starts from you. Okay. You have to have that internal grit to be able to
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we're running out of time quite quickly for this first panel discussion, but I want to take questions from the audience. So I hope that you have used your QR codes to send in questions for the panelists. I'm waiting to get those through. In the meantime, while people are doing that, I'd like to find out from the three of you if there is anything that you would like to discuss that I haven't asked. But please.
1 minute, 32 seconds left.
But please make it as concise as possible. If there's anything that you would like to share with the audience that you feel is very important that they need to know about in relation to the topic.
One thing I would say to everyone is please don't get distracted. Please. It's the worst thing ever because there will be distractions. Don't stay focused. Just keep looking ahead that you need to achieve that. How am I going to achieve it? And that must be all you always think about. Yeah. Focus.
What I would say is that while I said, sometimes you have to do things that, you have to change your personality or whatever, as I said, not that you should, but that's kind of the reality. I think it's important for you to stay true to who you are and not to lose the core of what you are. Don't become a totally different person because you feel that is what you need to do to succeed. You must have some kind of core, some kind of moral purpose or whatever it is. And please don't, stray away from that, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to look back and think that, yes, okay, I've stuck to what I believe in and who I am.
Thank you. Please put your hands together for our panelists. We now have additional minutes to take questions.
So I would just like to add one thing to that.
Okay.
While the question's coming. I think the biggest revelation for me is you are not alone. I think for women, especially women who are forging a path, it can feel like a very lonely journey. And that can be part of the reason you get. But what surprises me, especially in this day of social media, is the number of people who are rooting for you and who you're inspiring by virtue of the path that you're forging. So even if they're not visible in your line of work or in your industry, just know there are people watching. For me, it's my two girls. Every day I go home, I'm like, I'm creating a better world for them because I refused for them to go through what I've had to go through. So it's you're not alone. You are a role model regardless of what path you're forging. And so rest on the sort of support that comes from the broader female network globally that is pushing you to sort of achieve and conquer.
Thank you. Can we have the first question, please? So the first question is, don't worry, I'll read it. You don't need to vent back at all. First question is for Andrea Lee. What role do you think men can play in curbing the structural and cultural barriers women encounter?
Well, I think the one thing is to realize that while how do I put this? While I think a lot of people, not just men, think that the thing to do is to, treat everybody exactly the same. And that's not always the appropriate thing to do. And just one tiny example, I used to be the CEO of the AFC. And, at some point I realized that, look, a lot of the ladies there were having issues with childcare. And, this is not something that men, have the issue with in our culture, at least. And so, I was saying, okay, well, let's, provide childcare. And one or two people were like, well, it's not exactly treating everyone the same. But it's like, look, we're in a society, people have children, people have to take care of the children, and you just need to provide this stuff. So I think that, I guess to expand that is really that to realize that, look, there are structural issues, and you do need to actually kind of be aware of them, look out for them, and sometimes go out of your way to try and, take those barriers away.
So essentially be allies. Create opportunities and avenues for them to make it easy.
Yes, and it's not necessarily that, you're just like, is sort of the feminist or quote unquote or whatever it is.
No, but allies that actually put their words into action.
But this is the point, it's like, just to take the race issue, right? People will say, okay, well, we're treating everybody equally, right? But if somebody has already been, if you think of somebody running a 100 meters race and one has had a weight on their ankle and then the other one doesn't, and you've taken the weight away, but the first person is 20 meters ahead, and you're now treating them equally, that is not fair. So I think that you have to be careful that, to understand where people are coming from, and as the question says, the structural issues that those people are facing. And, women face it. There are other, categories of people who face structural issues, especially in this country. But to understand what those issues are and to deliberately try and remove those structural barriers, I think is important. And not just saying, oh, we're being fair, we're treating everyone equally.
Thank you. We have the next question, please. And that question is for Mo Abudu. How do you handle gender-related roadblocks in your career?
As in roadblocks for me, I assume?
Yes.
I actually try not to see them. I don't go into a room thinking that, oh, this roadblock is because I am a woman. It could be, but I really refuse to see that. I go into the room knowing that I have an objective that I need to achieve, and my focus is on achieving the objective. And it's how am I going to get it done is the focus. So if I walk into the room and you happen to think I'm a pretty woman, and that takes, fine, look at me and say, fine, but we are here to do business. This is my presentation. This is why I'm here. This is the letter. This is what, and, hopefully at the end of the day, it's signed or whatever, and we're in business.
So your way of handling gender roadblocks is just have laser focus.
Yes, you can't be bothered
ignore
with
everything else.
You have to ignore all the ariwoja, as we say in Yoruba. You just have to move ahead and just know I am here for a purpose. Don't get distracted. Seriously. Yeah.
Thank you. Third question for Temi. How can female entrepreneurs unlock financial opportunities for their businesses?
It's a valid question, right? So if you look globally, less than 2% of venture capital is allocated by women, and you have something called the sort of confirmation bias, is that investors end up investing behind founders and teams that look and sound like them, which means that most of venture capital goes to male founders and teams. That's something that I'm very focused on addressing, and I think there's been a lot of literature and spotlight on the sort of importance of capital going to women-founded or at least gender-diverse teams. There's also a lot of data that shows gender-diverse teams actually outperform. And so, we're in a good space where in 2021, we're not debating the fact that gender diversity is an important milestone for people to achieve. But we are sort of struggling in terms of just redirecting capital flows. One of my mentors told me very early that, whatever you do, stay close to the money. And that actually changed my whole course of my career. So I was like, okay, right. So either I go and work for the Bank of England or I go to Goldman Sachs because I need to be close to the money. Yeah. But it's advice that I give female founders, entrepreneurs. Your thing can be marketing and sales and whatever, but never lose sight of the capital, because ultimately that's what's required for the business to survive, to scale. So look, I think there is some optimism in the sense that you're speaking to a more receptive audience of investors that recognize the importance of gender diversity. But that's not to say you don't have to put in the hard work. And women still have to do 2 to 3 times the work to basically achieve the same thing as men. So as we've said on this panel, sort of be persistent, have grit, be focused on performance track record. But it's not all doom and gloom, because there are receptive people and there are more women sitting in capital allocation seats that are actively looking for female founders and diverse teams to back. So be bold, sort of put yourself out there, build kick-ass teams, and sort of just go out there and do what you need to do.
Thank you. Please put your hands together for our panelists. I hope that they have answered some of your questions, if not all. You will still have a chance to speak to a lot of them at the end of tonight when we have the cocktail and networking session. So hopefully, if we've not answered all of your questions, you'll still be able to get some of those answered. Once again, put your hands together for our panelists. Thank you so much. And I have learned a lot. Thank you. We're going to take a very, very, very quick break. Allow people to go freshen up if they need to. And then we'll be back for the second panel discussion. I would just like to please ask the second and third group of panelists, can we please keep, I know there's so much information to share. Can we please keep our answers precise? Please. I'm learning a lot, and I know that the audience is as well too, but we have a limited amount of time for each panel discussion. And I also want people to be able to ask a lot more questions than just, one question per panelist. This is an opportunity for people to learn, to share, to express themselves. And please feel free to do so. I don't want anybody to feel that because this is a business setting with, industry leaders, I can only ask, questions. That's why it's this intimate sort of event. I know that if I was sitting in the audience, a lot of the questions that I would ask wouldn't necessarily be, just pertaining to business, but what were your personal experiences? And for me personally, obviously, I probably connect a lot more with MA because we're in a similar industry. I am inspired by what all of you have to say, and I'm going to definitely take a lot of what I'm learning, and I will apply it to Nollywood. I definitely will. I absolutely will. Because from what I've learned today, you can't sort of sit back and relax. You have to be bold. And yes, I have been, but I clearly need to be even more so. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.